set this sort of webinar-based event up early lockdown one as just a way of sort of connecting people, using our position of having many sort of housing connections to allow people to sort of share and borrow ideas from one another, helping navigate through the pandemic, and just a way of just saying hello and some friendly faces as well. But yeah, since then kind of turned into a bit of a bit like an online community almost, really, where we have sort of guest speakers joining from time to time. We talk through topics ourselves at Prodo as well. So yeah, hopefully today will be helpful for you guys who've joined today. Quick intro to Prodo. We are a digital transformation agency, is how we sort of market ourselves. So we provide and implement a range of different digital solutions to help housing associations sort of enhance customer experience, operate more efficiently in some ways, and overall just look to accelerate that digital channel shift, really. Got a few Prodo people on with me today as well. So my name's Jacob, I'm a digital strategist at Prodo. So my role basically is here to explore digital transformation projects and look to bring on some new Prodo customers and sort of align our product and service offering with those challenges and ambitions for housing associations. We've got Jenny on as well. I know you're going to talk through something. Jenny, want to say a quick hello?
Yeah, hi everyone. Hope you can hear me. Yeah, my name's Jen. I'm a group account director here at Prodo, and I work with lots of our lovely clients, particularly in the housing space, to make sure that the services, the products, the solutions that we develop for you sort of continue to meet those challenges. And things change really fast, don't they, particularly in the last 18 months. So we've seen a lot of sort of change in terms of the appetite and direction that some of our clients are going in. So yeah, really happy to be here today and looking forward to chatting with you.
Thanks, Jen. So yeah, as you all saw, today's basically a bit of a roundup almost of some of the key areas which we sort of learned and discussed with people at the Housing 2021 event last week, which was great. So we're going to keep it quite informal, talk through a few topics, hopefully sort of open the floor a little bit for you guys who've joined us today to give your opinion and some thoughts on certain things. So yeah, I suppose to begin with, I think we're going to be popping some things into the chat pane, just asking if you guys attended, what you thought of it, any particular topics that you found interesting that you might want to sort of cover today. Anything, how did you find it? Was it a good event? Obviously, it was the first one sort of post-COVID, and one of the first times that everybody, certainly myself and some of the Prodo team, have interacted with that many people in one go in person for a long time. So yeah, how many of you sort of attended? Feel free to pop up in the chat pane or just stick your hand up or anything like that. Feel free to unmute yourselves and have a quick chat. I know a couple of you went, because we met yourself, Andrew, we met yourself as well, Emily. We've got Drew on today as well, who's sort of working with. So yeah, feel free to unmute or raise your hand if you came. Great to know your thoughts. Don't worry if not, though. We've got a few things to talk through.
Andrew, how did you find the event?
Chaotic. So it was good. It's my first CIH housing event, so there was a lot of kind of getting to know what to expect and how to deal with it.
Yeah,
I've come away with lots of ideas, lots of questions. I think the key one's going to be tempering those enough that I don't annoy everyone in the first week by saying, right, we're going to go and buy all of this and do all of this, and but no, it was really friendly, really good to kind of meet a lot of people. Amazing how many people are in the same situation as you, I think, is the really kind of reassuring one to go, that everyone's struggling with working from home and working in different scenarios, and everyone's kind of got the same problems with digital transformation and things like that. So yeah, really interesting.
Good to hear. Good to see a few other sort of hands go up there as well. We have we brought our video expert with us, video exec Danny, who you might have seen if some of you came, just taking some shots. So we've put together a bit of a brief sort of summary video, which I'm just going to quickly share my screen and just show you. It's only a couple of minutes. But first, if I just make sure that I share the right screen, 2 seconds. So yeah, great to get your thoughts on this video as well. Pretty proud of it so far. go. A bit of a nice sort of snapshot really of our Housing 2020 experience. We took our shiny caravan, as you probably saw on the video. We had some chocolate dogs to give away. We were trying to give away our channel shift book to as many people as we could. So hopefully some of you have picked that up or maybe seen it in the past. So yeah, that was great. So we've got a few sort of topics to talk through today, and it'd be good to get some of your thoughts on this as well, and obviously some from the Proto team too. But we will only spend a little bit of time on this and hopefully have a bit of an informal chat at the end. But the first one was we found generally sort of inclusion and accessibility being one which is something which is sort of coming up a little bit more at the moment, particularly around when we sort of consider, so these sort of topics are kind of from our perspective geared towards the sort of the digital side of things that we learned from the event. But yeah, when we think about putting systems in place and platforms and things to help sort of serve as many customers digitally as possible, in order to do so, obviously accessibility and inclusion is kind of a huge part of that, and not only informs part of legislation which is sort of in place these days to meet those WCAG accessibility guidelines, but it's crucial in that sort of overarching goal really of looking to service as many people as possible digitally, including those who possibly have personal scenarios or disabling conditions which prevent them from interacting with their landlord digitally. And yeah, we were asked a question quite often at the event, and sort of obviously in the past as well, this is no new thing really, about what we sort of do about this when it comes to the websites, the portals and applications and things we deliver. Spoke to a few of you about this at the event. I think generally where the sort of housing sector is such an important sort of space for us as an agency, obviously with us sort of going to the event and working in that sector for a long time, all the platforms that we sort of build and deliver all sort of meet the accessibility guidelines required from who we're working with from a design and user experience perspective. But we also put things in place around sort of including toolbars and things to help enhance that, to enable people to increase text size and toggle high contrast mode and things, launch screen readers like BrowseLoud and ReciteMe to sort of allow the screen readers to work. But yeah, that was something that we sort of took from the event around inclusion, accessibility. So did anyone else sort of find that? Is that something in particular that you guys on the call today are sort of having some focus on when it comes to digital solutions, or anything anyone want to sort of bring up at that point? You're nodding your head there, Josh.
Yeah, one of the vague requirements I was given early on, I joined Trafford Housing Trust just before the pandemic. Yay.
Yeah.
But the principle was understand how accessible our current websites are. At the time we had 7 different products, and then find the criteria for WCAG2, try and find the gaps between what we've got and what we want or need. There's public, there was some rule, I can't remember the name of the legislation exactly, but it was something like all public facing or customer facing public sector websites should conform to WCAG2, or at least to a WCAG standard of some sort. Yeah. So I read the WCAG documentation, which was dull but very good because it tells you what's right and wrong. And then I used my first draft of gap analysis was Google Chrome's Lighthouse tool. Sorry, I've got a kitten.
Yeah,
scratching me. I'm very accessible to him, put it that way. So I had to understand which elements of the page could be optimized for different users and different user requirements, and different tools, free tools and paid tools, can give you access to kind of mimicking. I was corrected by a Reddit user about the term colorblindness. They said that's no longer should we be using that, because that implies that someone's a lesser or wrong somehow, naturally wrong. Okay. So another terminology that I've lost because it was so long ago now, but in short, went through the automated tool and then went through the manual checks per item. Yeah. So you'll get an impression of this background color and this text color. The contrast is incompatible with a range of WCAG standards. Yeah. But there's also contrast standards. So I went to minute detail to understand what was wrong and what could be improved. And because we develop in-house our websites, we were lucky to have developers or website developers the balance, I'll get, just to stop myself rambling,
All right.
one of the most important things I found was right near the end, which is where you've got brand guidelines, and those brand guidelines contradict WCAG.
Right.
So it's the aesthetic element that our comms and marketing team might be experts in, and I don't, obviously don't care about aesthetics so much, but the principle for me was finding a way to get them on board to say accessibility is more important than your subjective preference for aesthetics. So that was a good learning experience, but they're lovely people, so we got it sorted. So I reran manual and automatic tests after that first relaunch. We've got a UX person in post now.
Amazing.
And what I'm trying to do is get him involved in in-house builds for colleague using systems.
Yeah.
So we apply the same statistic considerations. Accessibility is, like, it could be any different reason for an individual has a barrier to using a website, and we could be losing leads for our sales as a result of people finding this is not compatible with the system I use to access websites. So there's a lot to consider with accessibility, but I feel good for understanding it, because now I'm a BA, so I can be more considerate in my system design and assumptions of that. Not everyone's like me, so the more I can learn about that, the better, I think. And it's spread in our comms team. So now accessibility is another criteria for designing a new product.
Yeah, that's great to hear that you've sort of invested in that internally as well, in terms of creating that post and getting that UX person on board and really sort of putting in place a sort of emphasis on that. It's something we found quite often as well when we're building websites and portals and things, and we gain access to these brand guidelines, and we'll be going through the sort of design process. And sometimes it is a case of saying, these particular brand colors that we're looking to use here, we're unable to meet the certain guidelines. So it sometimes becomes a bit of an evolution of certain elements of the brand in order to meet those guidelines, because, like you say, it is like legislation which needs to be met now for public sector. So it's interesting.
I think it's a bit of a symptom as well of sort of brand guidelines are often created by teams or organizations that are not primarily digitally focused. So they're thinking about brand identity, how you articulate the brand in certain spaces, but not thinking about digital first. So actually we're quite often involved in facilitating those conversations to help educate the brand agency that actually then needs to kind of make accommodation within those brand guidelines, or adjust colours, or accept variances that they haven't considered before, just so that we can make sure that those digital experiences are accessible as possible. Something else that we've been talking to people about is how we can use other tools to kind of increase accessibility on sites as well. So Jake mentioned sort of use of kind of onboard tools like contrast changes and text size changes, and tools like browse loud and recite me, and language changing as well. We're also, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, but we're also looking at tools like image recognition and voice assisted technologies and voice recognition, to be able to kind of broaden that experience and simplify and make things easier for people as well to engage digitally. Are any of you sort of thinking about those kind of avenues when it comes to digital experiences?
No. Might be something that sort of comes next for you guys, but yeah, that's definitely something which again, it's not like a new thing for us, but it's definitely something we're hearing more and more about, particularly people who came to our stand at the event who were discussing and things. So that's good to hear. So thanks for your input on that, Josh. The next point, we've got a handful to go through, but the next one was generally sort of the future proofing of what people were looking to implement as well from a digital perspective. So obviously that comes into play in the non-digital side of things as well. But yeah, we're finding that housing providers are focusing on and looking at what those sort of quick wins and almost instant impact wins are, being really important, but also sort of thinking about making sure that whatever is implemented, whilst they do offer sort of quick wins and instant impact, they're able to sort of grow with and evolve as sort of time goes on and really stand the test of time going forward, particularly from a software perspective. Solutions that can evolve and adapt, I suppose, as requirements from organizations' perspective and customer perspectives change as well. I think one of the reasons for this is largely sort of informed by by other sectors really, which are potentially, a couple of steps possibly ahead of where often the housing space is. So people are obviously used to being able to interact with their bank, their utility providers, their mobile phone providers, and what have you, digitally at their fingertips at a time that suits them for many years now. And it feels almost like the housing space is kind of at a stage now where it's gaining traction in terms of catching up with that. And organisations are looking more at possibly some future innovations, as well as these sort of quick wins which need to be sort of put in place. And we'll come on to a specific aspect of that a little bit later on around the use of AI and things, which Jenny's going to talk through, which was a couple of speaker slots that Jenny had at the event. So some of you may have already heard those, but we've got a bit of a snippet on that after. But yeah, is that something which you guys are sort of always considering from a future-proofing perspective? Feels like nobody's looking for just a one-off piece of software or digital anymore. It's more of a roadmap of something that we can develop over time. Is that something sort of familiar with you guys on the call as well today? Anyone want to pop in on that one? Don't worry if not. No, don't worry. And then the next one I wanted to talk through before we move into the AI stuff was from a procurement perspective. So we sat in on some of you may have joined AM Bid's talk on procurement in the public sector and what's sort of changing in that space. So AM Bid are basically a organisation who help organisations and suppliers and providers who are sort of bidding for work and sort of selling into the public sector, help them with tender writing, sort of training and things on there. And from their perspective, the topics which seem to be on the increase here in terms of procurement and more emphasis at the moment, and we've seen this firsthand at Prode as well when responding to tenders and things, is CSR, it's environmental and business continuity as well. And all of them really, if you think about them, are kind of a sign of the times really. So from that sort of corporate social responsibility perspective, which is, again, something which definitely isn't a new concept, it feels like the housing space in particular are placing quite a lot of emphasis on CSR when it comes to selecting suppliers at the moment. And they're looking to partner with basically suppliers who are actively thinking about CSR, can actively sort of offer that sort of aspect within the contract, as a way of kind of not only sort of scoring people, but also matching company cultures with the sector which you guys sort of operate in really, making the most of ongoing partnerships. And we've found having a solid CSR sort of foundation in place not only sort of helps us score well in tenders and hopefully win new pieces of work, but also lets us sort of enhance and strengthen relationships going forward as well with our clients and partners. And the next sort of aspect of this that we're focusing on, and we had some discussions with our CEO on this after the event, because another aspect we sort of learned about was the concept of furniture poverty, which is something which I wasn't aware of overly, to be honest, if I'm being totally honest. So basically furniture poverty being the scenario where customers and people who rely on sort of social housing for their accommodation, being able to successfully move into those homes, but those homes being largely unfurnished or completely unfurnished, with those people having sort of a lack of means to be able to source those pieces of furniture that they need, forcing them to look at things like, Bright House and credit or monthly payments for looking to sort of furnish the properties, which can, as we know, sort of end up, depending upon personal scenarios, possibly sort of spiraling into financial difficulties. So what we're looking to do is hopefully use our position as an agency who has lots of housing sector clients and contacts sort of a little bit wider than that, as a way of sort of hopefully looking to raise awareness of this and maybe work with our partners on thinking about potential solutions or running campaigns to sort of help with this, looking at possible solutions. So this is one that, as I say, personally quite not like a new concept, but something which is sort of something we're discussing a little bit more at the moment. Is there any of you guys considering this? Has anyone got anything in place at the moment to sort of help with the furniture poverty side of things that we can sort of discuss with you today, out of interest?
In Greater Manchester, there are several key furniture recycling schemes. And I think there's one called the Mustard Tree, at least there was before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So ordinarily, depending on the organisation and its available resources. I worked at Great Places previously, and they could afford to get a void removal van to shift anything that was salvageable, take it to the mustard tree, and then it goes back into persons who need households that need furniture moving with nothing.
Right.
Could be any range of circumstances that bring to that situation, but
Yeah,
it's available to those that need it rather than people that just say, oh yeah, I want a new table.
yeah,
So that was pretty cool. But there's quite a few. So as you'd imagine, Trafford Housing Trust is predominantly based in the borough of Trafford.
yeah.
We're building outside of it all the time, but our social enterprise team, the foundation, have a lot of connections of that nature.
Right.
So I'm not the best business representative for that area, but I can send you links if you want them to. But it's the same principle in different boroughs, I guess.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Thanks for that, Josh.
Michael added a note in the chat that was interesting about partnering with other HAs as well to provide furnished tenancies. So Michael, if you're around, do you want to say a little bit more about that? No, not sure he's got his mic on.
Not sure if we've managed to get Michael.
I think he's an attendee, so he might not be able
There
to.
we go. I think I was just typing something else as well. Sorry. Yeah, we work with, I believe it's Newcastle Furniture Service from a house association in Newcastle to provide furnished tenancies for people who are struggling to try and avoid those problems and pitfalls of people falling into debt and keep more sustainable tenancies and obviously make people have vibrant homes, lives, neighbourhoods. My boss would kill me if I didn't just throw in our tagline. We've also worked with a local partner, a small organisation called Refresh. So our team, we go to void properties, and if they find kind of, half decent furniture, couches from people who've left them there or abandoned them, we take them to Project Refresh. There's also like a bit of a social arm of it where people from the community invited in to learn the skills of kind of upscaling and refurbishing furniture. And then there's a bit of a supported housing process. Most of that furniture goes to people who are a supported housing tenancy, and they kind of pick from a calendar. So I'm trying to digitize the calendar, a catalogue is the word I was looking for. And we're trying to digitalize that catalogue, but in a sort of easy / accessible way for people to get to and pick quickly and do a quick form. So we're not on the phone all the time going, oh no, sorry, that's out of stock, or that's out of whatever it is. So we've got two different arms there.
That's interesting. No, that's great to hear. Would you mind if some of you guys would contribute to this, if we sort of maybe continued the conversation on this, maybe offline at another stage, just because it is something we're quite interested in at the moment and seeing what we can do to sort of help, I suppose. So that'd be great if that's all right.
Yeah, of course. Give you some contacts within our organisation who know a bit more about it themselves.
Yeah, perfect. Right, great stuff. Cheers for that, Michael.
I think Eileen's perspective is really interesting as well. So there's a consequence of COVID, and looking at, I'm assuming the downsizing of offices is a consequence of COVID and the pandemic, but actually, looking to, pass that furniture that is no longer needed in the office space onto those charities. So yeah, that's really great.
Good stuff. It's great to hear that's sort of all in progress, isn't it, already at the moment? It's good to hear. And then the last point before we move into the AI stuff and sort of future-proofing and innovation was just another quick one which we discussed with AM Bid, which was from a procurement perspective, generally, seemingly people are sort of quite focused at the moment, and again, sort of the sign of the times really, in sort of refreshed and how suppliers and agencies and what have you have evolved their business continuity and disaster recovery side of things. Obviously, I think before the pandemic, the thought of something like this happening seemed quite unlikely. So I think suppliers and everyone's have had to pivot somewhat and sort of make sure that they are able to include this sort of continuity plan and recovery plan for these sorts of things happening, which we've certainly had to do, and that formed part of often our tender responses as well. So no, interesting, and yeah, that's from a procurement perspective. That's some of the points which we took from it. So good to hear that some of you guys agree with that, and thanks for your contributions as well. Yeah, so the next bit, we kind of mentioned it a couple of times. Obviously, if you did come along to the event, you would have heard Jenny talk about the AI work we've been doing. So I thought I'd hand over to you at this point, Jen, if you want to talk about the AI stuff a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, really good to hear that some of you have caught the sessions that we did at the event. It was a really enjoyable sort of process for us. It was great to have those speaker slots at the first event, sort of back from the pandemic. Very nerve-wracking because it's been a while since we've done that sort of thing. The great sort of aspect of that for us was being able to share the stage with one of our clients who we do lots of innovative project development work with. So that was Rich Harvey from Housing Solutions. We talked, one of our sessions was very much focused on kind of the journey that Housing Solutions have been on and how we've supported with digital development and innovation as part of that. And then the second session was more focused on our AI solution that we're developing with them. So we thought we might just kind of take you through the slides and give you a little bit of insight into what we're developing, how that's going to help them as an organisation, how it's going to help their customers, and sort of some of the potential avenues that we can see for future extension points with that particular type of technology. So I'm just going to see if I can share my screen. Bear with me. Hopefully this will work. Okay. Great stuff. So this is just a few slides about the first AI-powered repair diagnostic tool that we've developed. I'll skip through the intros and I'll skip through the piece about Prodo because we've already talked about that. But AI is not a new thing, obviously. It's been around for decades, but actually the sort of practical applications of it are changing all the time. And particularly over the last year, housing providers have had to change, adapt, pivot, around the pandemic, like many organisations have. But particularly where you're servicing a customer base and may have large proportions of that customer base that rely on face-to-face or in-person contact with you to help manage their tenancies. We really wanted to look at ways that we can use new technology to be able to support servicing customers, support really good experiences with clever digital technology, but also as a sort of secondary benefit of that, looking at how that can support operational efficiencies for housing providers like yourselves. We really wanted to look at how we can kind of push the boundaries, look at new technology. We have a development team within Prodo, and we always have some of that team sort of dedicated to looking at research and development projects, looking at emerging technology. Pre-pandemic, we would often go to kind of some of the big development conferences around the world every year, just to kind of sort of keep abreast of sort of new emerging technologies and look at how we can apply those to our customers. And we started looking at how we can use image recognition AI approach to support. Initially, our thought was around supporting repair diagnostics for housing customers. So taking a sort of traditional sort of step-by-step digital diagnostic process for repairs and condensing that down to just taking a photo of the problem and then having the solution interpret what the problem is. Something that we've heard quite often over the years with housing providers is that trying to map how a customer interprets a problem and how you need to receive the information about a problem for a repair is a challenge. Trying to be quite symptom-led for the customer, but also you have a sort of set way of defining and describing problems and repairs within your internal systems. So we started looking at AI image recognition as a way to kind of cut through some of that challenge. And actually, when we started talking to Housing Solutions about this, they helped us come up with an initial use case, which was around identifying boilers. So quite niche in terms of kind of first iteration of this solution. But the problem that they identified was that across their housing stock, they didn't have reliable, consistent data about what boiler assets were in their properties. So actually, when you have your sort of typical spike in winter heating problems and customers reporting, lack of hot water, lack of heating, the cost of servicing those repairs, obviously, there'll be a big spike there. But actually, they were finding that based on the information they received from the customer, an engineer would visit the property and then perhaps find out that the boiler was something different than they understood it to be, or that they didn't have the parts or the kit to be able to service that repair. So we looked at creating a snap and send boiler identification tool as a first kind of use case for our AI tool in order to backfill that data. And that meant that customers would be able to confirm with Housing Solutions what their boiler was just by sending through a single photo through the service. That information is then stored in their back office systems and means that their teams are enabled with the right information about what boiler make and model is in that property before they visit the property. So I'll talk you through a little bit about how this works. So the first step within the customer Housing Solutions customer portal, customers are prompted to use the AI tool, and actually we can sort of seasonally control when we put that trigger in. So actually the first iteration of this went out last winter, and we were making this prompt really kind of front and center. So as soon as the customer logs in, if they haven't already used the tool, they'll be prompted to use the tool, and we're now about to start another campaign to kind of drive that engagement again. So the second step is they're prompted to take a photo with their device camera, or to upload a photo from their camera roll. So this is very mobile first in terms of its targeting. So if you click on the tool, it will launch the camera or give you the option to launch the camera roll and pick your photo from there. Then it moves into identifying what the boiler is, and it will play back to the customer what make of boiler it believes your photo to be. Now actually this operates with a really high degree of accuracy based on the data that it's been fed over time, and it's kind of improving that accuracy all the time. But we launched with an accuracy of over 90% in terms of image recognition. We're now operating at over 95%, and that's kind of sort of getting better through sort of marginal gains all the time. So the customer's then asked to confirm if this is the right kind of boiler. In the unlikely event that it guesses at the wrong kind of boiler, then you're given an option to kind of take another photo and repeat the process, or just manually confirm what the boiler is. But we are seeing really good numbers in terms of how accurate the identification process is. Then the customer's given a drop-down list of different boiler models within that make to confirm, and then they basically confirm that in the system, and then that information is passed back to Housing Solutions. So that helps customers and Housing Solutions in a number of ways. So it delivers a really amazing customer experience. You know, it's really quick. It takes seconds to complete that process. And the idea for when we apply this to repair reporting is that it's going to kind of cut down that process and the time taken to report problems really quite significantly. It provides really consistent and accurate data collection. So rather than relying on a spoken description of the problem over the phone or a typed description, actually we can, you know, immediately map an image to the way a repair or a problem is defined in the back office system. So that means that you're getting the same kind of repairs reported in the same way, with supporting information in an image, so that you have a visual of the problem, and you're better able to and then service those repairs really, really efficiently. But it also helps with that asset portfolio aspect. And this was something that we hadn't considered when we first started building the tool, but actually came about through that partnership with Housing Solutions. So we were able to find, you know, an additional use case there that was a good kind of first trial version of the tool for Housing Solutions, and based on that we're now looking to roll that out over different use cases for their customers. So in terms of sort of the results that we've had so far, as I mentioned, the accuracy rating for identifications of boiler images that are passed into the tool is really, really high. There are something like 33 or 34 different boiler brands that are identified. That covers the bulk of the market out there. There will always be some edge cases in there that, you know, some strange boiler type that nobody's seen for 30 years. But obviously over time with, you know, sort of asset replacements and improvements going into properties, then, you know, that visibility of that asset and what's in your portfolio will improve all the time. And in the first 3 months since launching the tool, we had over 300 submissions. We're now about to start another campaign out to Housing Solutions customers. So that's an email campaign, highly personalised, with sort of follow-up activity to prompt people to use the tool again, so that Housing Solutions can keep building up that really good picture of what boilers are in their properties, and help them with servicing winter heat and hot water problems. So as I mentioned, kind of the boiler check wasn't our first vision for how we would use this tool. We originally thought of this as a repair diagnostic tool. So actually that's what we're working on now. We're coming towards the end of the development of a mobile application that's going to incorporate the AI tool to be able to diagnose and report repairs. So customers will be able to take a photo of the problem, have the system play back to them what the system believes the problem to be, and then confirm that and log their repair. We're also incorporating voice recognition within that, so customers will have the ability to either just take a photo of the problem or actually describe the problem verbally directly into the device, and that will be played back to them on screen and then locked in as a repair report. We already also have an AI model that successfully identifies damp and mold problems. And as part of the testing of this, you might be interested to know that we had to train it to recognise the difference between genuine mould on walls and damp and condensation, and images of Stilton cheese and other mouldy cheeses. So we kind of chucked lots of data at this model to try and trip it up and improve the accuracy. But actually, we've got kind of high 90s percentage rate of accuracy in terms of identifying those kind of problems. So we can see lots of potential with this tool to support really brilliant customer experiences, improve the ease and efficiency of reporting problems online, but also support that really good kind of data capture and efficiency of being able to then take that forward to service the repair. And I think that's it. Yeah,
great.
That's the end of our little presentation.
Thanks, Jen. I've had loads of questions pop through for you.
Okay.
I know we only have you guys for 45 minutes today and we're running out of time, but we'll try and get to a few. We've had a few from Jay, a few from Josh. I don't know if you guys wanted to pop off mute to discuss them with Jen, or is it are you guys all right with that? You got a couple, Jay? I've seen you come off mute.
Yeah, I think it's a cool bit of tech, to be honest. It's exciting. I think it's where the sector's going. Having worked for the likes of Orchard and the tech that they're sort of looking at, and the private sector and what they're doing, it's certainly going where the sector's going. I work for a compliance organisation now, and so we're sort of looking at the LGSRs, the fire risk assessments, and when an engineer goes out, I was sort of thinking, well, it's great. I think the tech's potentially amazing, but I've got these conflicting ideas. Well, if you've got your job booking systems, your DRS systems, then it's almost like, is there a potential for duplication unless there's direct integration with said systems? So that was a bit, and that was to one of Josh's points really. And then the other thing is like, well, I don't know. I'm trying to formulate the ideas because I get excited about tech like this because I see it's got a place. But it's just like I don't know. I think there's a potential for it to be a duplication, unless it's sort of narrowed down. And I think it all comes down for me to integrations. And I was already excited about, well, actually, I could see how it would integrate with our kit to benefit those organisations out there. So it was more a bit of an observation really, and me going off on this major tangent of excitement and how it could serve the sector. So I think really that's me for the moment, and I'll just have to think about. I think that it might be worth us having a conversation about potential integrations and things like that for customers.
Yeah. Well, I can give you a bit of insight into that, sort of based on the work we're doing now. So most of the portals that we deliver for housing providers, wherever possible, we want to be able to integrate those directly with housing management systems, CRM systems, DRS, EDRM, payment gateways. So wherever those services are available, that's always our recommendation to integrate with those. The mobile application, which incorporates repairs, which incorporates this AI tool and voice recognition tool, will have a full integration available when it's launched. So that's part and parcel of what we're building for Housing Solutions at the moment. So that will take that repair that's been logged through the front end, map that to a trade code and SOR code, pass that through to Capita Open Housing, have that raise the job number, and then go through the loop of retrieving the appropriate appointment slots for that trade.
Yeah. So do you think that he would have like the ability to go, well, I'm a tenant, and I'll go to the boiler or whatever appliance it might be, a hob or whatever, and I go. I mean, in my head, when we used to sell the digital portals where it was like diagnostics tools, where it would say where, what's the serial number, what's the GC number, and you can find, and you might be able to say, well, based on that appliance, you can find that in the inside of that appliance in this particular location. But without that information, if I'm a resident and I take a picture of that appliance and it says, well, actually, this is the appliance we think it is, would it then make an integration between the system and the asset management system and the component information, saying, well, based on that, we think that this is the appliance that we've got registered?
Yeah,
so almost like making that.
That's definitely something that's possible, given the right webhooks or API service to be able to pass that information between the two services. But that's it's not something we're including for day one with this mobile app, but it's definitely something that we'd be looking to extend to. Another kind of key extension area we can see is thinking about general kind of condition reporting as well. So customer takes a photo of a broken window because they want to report there's a broken pane of glass, but actually, we can train the AI model to be able to interpret other information from that image. So we could potentially in future be looking at passing back information about, are there issues such as hoarding at that property? Are there other condition problems that we need to think about? So, we know this is a photo of a broken window, but actually we can see the kitchen cabinet door is hanging off its hinges. So there are other kind of sort of peripheral benefits we can start to think about getting from this kind of technology that can support a view of kind of the health and sustainability of tenancies. And, longer term that can inform, looking at your planned maintenance schedules, and, I guess the possibilities start to become a bit endless then when you start to kind of, it'll grow arms and legs, definitely.
Yeah.
But our boiler identification pilots has been, really successful with Housing Solutions. The next launch will be the mobile app, which will include the repair approach, which will integrate directly with their appointment scheduling. So in a single flow, a customer will be able to submit an image or describe a problem, book an appointment, and have that all confirmed. And potentially, that could take 30 seconds, 1 minute of their time to be able to do that, whereas they may have spent 5 minutes on the phone with a customer contact colleague to go through that process, and they've also got the time before that they've spent waiting in the queue. So we're all feeling sort of really quite excited about the potential for this to sort of make things more efficient for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Josh, I think you had some questions as well, didn't you?
Yeah, years ago, we built our own, at Great Places, we built our own solution. It wasn't an app, it was like a lightweight website that allowed operatives to receive jobs and update them and update the other systems accordingly. And we were trying to build our website in a funnel way that said, use images to help customers with any kind of linguistic barriers to select the right kind of work from the top level of where in the house is it and so on. You've seen the visual tools for that, I'm sure. What I learned was that no matter which method we allowed customers to self-serve, there'd be really good insight from operatives who said, fine, send me to a fence job, but the scale of this fence is more than one person. So, and I put notes on the job in response to say, I can't do this. Where are those notes gone? Who reads them? And it turned out that no one had ever read any of the notes and the operatives to say why. So my first question was about operative input into this, because when you're sending work out to a skilled tradesperson, then you're trusting the amount of information you're given at the time is going to be accurate enough to get the right person to do the right work. And we know there's always challenges with, accurate diagnosis. I'm a homeowner and I can't do it. So I'm trying to understand if the operatives who are getting the result of this self-service solution are giving you feedback that you're able to use to improve it based on, they say, oh, the generic work for fix a pipe is not sufficient, or we need more than what we're getting at the moment. Do you get any of that?
We don't get directly involved in those kind of conversations, to be honest, but we do get sort of anecdotal views on that from our customers. Something that we have implemented for a number of portal customers, and this will be part of a sort of future phase for the mobile application, is to have a sort of operative staff access angle to that. So we already have portals that are staff enabled to be able to report repairs on behalf of customers, or to kind of search and sift through customer accounts to be able to retrieve information from customers. So the big benefit there is that they're using the same kind of interface, they're getting the same kind of experience as the customer. That means they're better equipped to be able to encourage those customers to engage digitally and move them over into that kind of experience. But we are also looking at ways that we can extend that to operatives that are visiting properties and have them use a similar kind of interface to be able to book follow-up jobs, pass in notes and feedback, potentially even kind of add risk information about the property. So all of those kind of additional use cases can all be wrapped up in, you know, one platform that customers can access, staff can access, and everyone can, you know, benefit from that sort of fully integrated experience.
Okay, cool, thank you. I think a lot of my questions are kind of in the same area, to be honest. Making documents available once someone's identified their own boiler make and model. So there's a grey area here where you don't want people to experiment with non-trained personnel experimenting with boiler repairs. But at the same time, fixing your thermostat and understanding how to adjust things everyone likes. I saw a really good example of that. I recently stayed in a travel lodge or something, and it was like an A6 bit of card that explained in plain English with diagrams how to use the heating system or the air conditioner. So I felt like, why can't we give our customers that when they move in?
Yeah.
And then prioritize repairs. I guess like Jay responded that that's more likely a DRS kind of thing, because I understand why you wouldn't want a customer to say this is an emergency when it's like a crack in the front fence. And just like avoiding duplication of existing repairs by seeing repair history or something like that.
It's I think we already have some portals that have some rules around kind of adding duplicate jobs. So you know, the portal will retrieve a view of kind of all the repairs that are reported on a property. If you attempt to report another problem which is the same as an existing open problem, then we can set a rule to say, actually this looks like a duplicate, you know, we won't report this, or do you really want to report this at this time, or are you actually looking to report a different problem? We also have systems that will allow customers to request an update on a repair. So in the event that an appointment is missed, they've got the ability through the portal to request an update or to kind of escalate that or flag that, in which case that will get, there's a workflow behind that that will trigger that to be picked up by the relevant team to get in contact with the customer and then progress that for them.
I think that's really important, because I've seen, like, I worked with Equity Housing Group before they joined Great Places, and they had a mobile solution that was part of ArianQL, and it was fine, but it was very one way. So a customer's expectation was not managed once they submitted a form. Effectively, the data just disappeared and then was processed into their CRM, and the customer wouldn't know how long it was going to take to get back in touch. I think that's really, like, you and I would expect that from an app we used for our personal lives. We'd expect some method of feedback as a customer. So I don't understand why systems aren't built to that same standard in our sector. Strange.
I think so, you know, we work with lots of housing providers, and we've built a lot of portals over the years, and sometimes it's just about the availability of the service. You know, do you have the you know, the license to use the APIs that an Orchard or a Capita or a Civica make available when you purchase the software that you're using from them, because I think often that's a sort of separate consideration from a licensing point of view. But we also have systems that have kind of more sort of non-real-time workarounds for that. So, you know, having sort of asynchronous approach to kind of marrying up the data, or having, we do have some portals that rely on like a CSV upload because we don't have access to APIs to be able to pull that in real time. So yeah, there's always a way around it. We've got a couple of hands up, so we'll take a couple of last questions before we wrap things up.
Go on, Andrew.
Andrew, go on.
Just ask what kind of, you said that you kind of pushed this out to the app to get people to encourage them to do that. Did you notice, I think you said 300 to date were 300 in the first 3 months kind of picked it up?
Yeah.
Out of how many was it pushed out to? Just curious, as because I know that a lot of the time you try and push stuff out to apps and people just dismiss it. And again, until my boiler's broken, I don't even want to open the cupboard that it's in. You know, it's if the boiler's broken or if the temperature goes down, then I'll deal with my boiler. So I'm just curious how many people proactively actually responded to that.
Yeah, sure. So the campaign went out to about 1,100 housing solutions customers. Those were customers where we had an email address and they were an active portal user already. So we're kind of onto a bit of a, you know, that gave us a bit of a head start. But still, that was a really good response rate.
Yeah, really good.
Campaign. So yeah, so we're looking to replicate that again, sort of in the next few weeks to kind of get people engaged with the tool again prior to winter. Jay, I think you had a question as well.
Yeah, I've gone off on a tangent again. Sorry, guys, I get excited quite easily. So I'm thinking about the contractors side of things. So you've got the resident taking the picture, but if you've got, could it work in theory with the contractor whereby you might have a resident who's appointed the repair, they've gone through the diagnostics and stuff. It's then gone out to the to the resource team. That's assigned to a contractor. The contractor goes out, and so from a point of them then doing the repair itself and saying, well, actually, there's a component required to deliver this repair through to, so rather than taking a picture of the boiler, for example, I then get into the boiler and then snap it and then go component. That component then sort of references a library in the background saying, oh, actually, you've got this on your van stock. You need that component, or it's actually got that one available at this particular DLO site, or, is that the type of sort of logic that you're thinking from a contractor's point of view as well, or is that just?
Yeah, I think that's a definite future aspiration, to be able to make sure that engineers have the right kits on board to be able to fix that first, right first time. That's the phrase that we're always targeting, isn't it? Trying to enable teams to be able to get things right first time. So yeah, that's definitely something we're looking at as a feature extension.
Great stuff.
Good stuff, right, guys. I know we've run over quite a bit, so thanks for your time and staying on a little bit longer to go through those questions. I appreciate everyone's engagement, everyone's thoughts and opinions there. So thank you for that. We will have another Housing Hive session coming up probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks. So we'll be releasing the dates and sort of topics and things around that quite soon. We'll work with Meg, who's smiley faces on Zoom over there in the top corner as well, and we'll let everyone know about that. But yeah, just wanted to say thanks again for jumping on today, and thanks again for all the questions and everyone getting involved. It's great. So hopefully you took something away from that around the event and around the AI stuff that Jenny's talked through with Housing Solutions. So yeah, thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again on the next one as well.
Thanks so much, everyone. Really good to see you.
All right, guys.
Thanks
Thanks again.
Thank you.